when the Nihi River suddenly changed its course. The river surged violently and rapidly swallowed the entire low-lying area. The turbulent water, carrying a dense aura of deathly energy, continued climbing up the mountain slope, devouring every inch of land and turning the entire mountain into a deadly place with no escape. Amid this crisis, Xu Ying and the snake demon Wan Qi rushed into an abandoned temple at the mountain peak to seek shelter. However, the moment they stepped inside, they were immediately surrounded by a terrifying wave of icy coldness. This was not ordinary cold, it carried the sinister aura of the underworld. Penetrating deep into their bones, Wan Qi's mind became hazy, and he almost entered a state of hibernation like a snake during winter. Xu Ying immediately warned him to circulate his blood energy to resist the cold, or he would freeze to death. The two desperately activated their blood energy, trying to warm their bodies, but the strange cold aura was far too bizarre. Even their powerful blood energy could not completely dispel it. In this situation, Xu Ying had no choice but to circulate the Great Sun Body Refinement technique. Relying on its extreme yang power, he could barely resist the cold, causing his body temperature to rise slightly. Afterwards, he rekindled the dying fire inside the temple to maintain warmth. However, this fire was extremely abnormal. The flames gradually turned a gloomy green color, and within them appeared countless ancient faces with pale eyes and wide-open mouths, screaming silently without making any sound. It looked as if countless resentful souls were being burned inside the flames, making the atmosphere within the temple even more terrifying. Wan Qi trembled in fear and concluded that this place had extremely bad feng shui, which was why the temple had been abandoned. At the same time, beneath the mountain, the stone mountain god Huang Sei Ping was desperately rushing upward with 5 demon subordinates. While running, he circulated his true yang blood energy, forming a wave of heat like a burning furnace to resist the deathly aura released by the Nihi River. However, his demonic aura was too powerful, causing the 5 demons following him to be unable to maintain their human forms. One after another, they transformed into enormous demon beasts such as deer, weasels, wild dogs, and wild cats. They had originally been searching for Xu Ying under the orders of the city god. But after arriving at the mountain, the Nihi River suddenly rose and cut off their retreat, forcing them to flee toward the peak. The speed at which the water rose was terrifying. In just a short moment, it swallowed a fox demon. The moment the demon fell into the river, its fur, skin, and flesh instantly melted away, leaving only a white skeleton that was swept away by the current. The horrifying sight terrified the remaining demons, causing them to flee desperately. While escaping, Huang Sei Ping also saw the grass gods from the surrounding villages, spirits of people who had accumulated merit during their lives and were granted divine titles after death. However, under the overwhelming power of the Nihi River, these minor gods were completely helpless. Their statues shattered, their souls were swept away by the current, and they disappeared without a trace. The remaining 4 demons beside Huang Sei Ping were also gradually swallowed by the rising water. In the end, only Huang Sei Ping survived and managed to reach the abandoned temple. At that moment, another figure rushed toward the temple from another direction. It was Wei Chu, a prison officer from Lingling. The two sides immediately became cautious upon meeting because they belonged to opposing factions. One represented the government authorities of the mortal world, while the other belonged to the city god's forces. Previously, Wei Chu had led people to chase Xu Ying but failed. During the pursuit, he encountered the sudden change of the Nihi River, which swallowed 2 of his fellow officers, leaving him deeply frightened. Facing this disaster, the 2 enemies had no choice but to temporarily cease their conflict. Huang Sei Ping suggested cooperation, explaining that fighting at this moment would only result in both sides suffering heavy losses and dying together in the river. After considering the situation, Wei Chu agreed. Together, they entered the abandoned temple, the only place remaining above the rising water. Inside the temple, they saw Xu Ying and Wan Qi sitting beside the strange green fire. Wei Chu immediately recognized Xu Ying as the wanted criminal he had been searching for. Xu Ying mistakenly thought the officials had come to collect money, so he prepared to hand over silver. But after realizing that they wanted his life rather than his wealth, he became relieved and even declared that he would kill them if they tried to take his life. Both Wei Chu and Huang Sei Ping confirmed that their mission was to kill Xu Ying. However, Because they belonged to different systems, one representing mortal law and the other representing the laws of the underworld. They began arguing over who had the authority to deal with him. Yet with the Nihi River continuing to rise, they decided to put aside their disagreement and settle the matter after surviving the disaster. The three sat around the fire, warming themselves while talking. Xu Ying admitted that he had killed both humans and gods because he had been pushed into a desperate situation with no other choice except to fight back in order to survive. Meanwhile, Wei Chu and Huang Sei Ping described themselves as merely dogs, serving greater powers, carrying out orders from above. Their words revealed the corruption and helplessness within the systems of authority. At this moment, the Nihi River had already reached the temple entrance. Although its speed had slowed, it was certain that the entire temple would soon be submerged. Xu Ying looked outside and realized there was nowhere higher to escape. In despair, he asked why the Nihi River had suddenly changed direction and invaded the mortal world. Wei Chu explained that the Nihi River was originally an underworld river responsible for transporting the souls of the dead. Normally, it never changed its course. However, if an event caused the number of deaths to suddenly increase beyond the capacity of its branches, the main stream of the Nihi River would change direction to accept the additional souls. Huang Sei Ping added that this meant a massive disaster had occurred in the direction of the river's flow, the western region of Lingling, where countless people must have died. Xu Ying continued asking why the realms of life and death were supposed to be separated. Yet the Nihi River could still enter the mortal world. However, neither Wei Chu nor Huang Sei Ping could provide an answer. They only knew that similar events had occurred throughout history, proving that the balance between the mortal and underworld realms had long ceased to be completely stable. Wan Qi then revealed that the Nihi River changing its path had happened multiple times throughout history. 800 years ago, the underworld once invaded the mortal realm. Later, during the 14th year of the Tianbao era, another similar disaster occurred because of the rebellion of the Prince of Dongping, which caused countless deaths. What shocked Wei Chu and Huang Sei Ping was that a small snake demon like Wan Qi actually knew such ancient historical events. Wan Qi explained that his family had a tradition of studying books. For 3 generations, they had collected countless ancient texts, which allowed him to understand many forgotten events. However, Wei Chu mocked him, saying that what use was reading books? Could it help him become an official? His words angered Wan Qi, but he could not find a way to refute him. Not long after, the Nihi River finally flooded into the temple. Xu Ying, Wan Qi, Wei Chu, and Huang Sei Ping immediately jumped onto the roof to avoid the water. However, everyone understood that if the river continued rising, even the temple would be submerged. At that point, the Nihi River would be able to dissolve their flesh and blood. In this desperate situation, both Wei Chu and Huang Sei Ping secretly developed the thought of killing the others and using their bones as stepping stones. Because the Nihi River could corrode flesh but could not destroy bones, the two soon realized that the other person had the same idea and immediately became wary of each other. As the water continued rising and was about to swallow the entire temple, an unexpected event occurred. A brilliant divine light suddenly erupted from inside the temple, illuminating the entire sky and forcing everyone to close their eyes. The light then exploded into a thunderous bell sound that echoed throughout the mountains. The sound transformed into a gigantic bell-shaped barrier of light that covered the entire temple. The mysterious power contained within the bell forced back the Nihi River, creating a protective barrier around everyone inside. Outside the barrier, countless ghostly faces within the river continuously slammed against the bell wall before being shattered into clouds of green smoke. The temperature inside the temple gradually returned to normal, and the bone-chilling cold disappeared. Xu Ying quickly realized that the source of this power came from an old bronze bell hanging inside the shrine behind the temple. When everyone approached the bell, Wei Chu was shocked. He could not understand how such a powerful treasure could exist in an abandoned temple without being taken away by anyone. At that moment, the ground beneath their feet suddenly began shaking violently. The bronze bell shone brighter and brighter, its light piercing downward into the dark well beneath the shrine. Within that light, Xu Ying saw enormous black scales moving at the bottom of the well. They belonged to a gigantic creature hidden deep underground. As he approached to observe more closely, the layers of scales slowly separated, revealing a massive blue eye with a vertical pupil silently staring back at him. At that very moment, countless strange whispers flooded into Xu Ying's mind. causing tens of thousands of new thoughts and ideas to appear within his consciousness. When Xu Yang, Huang Sei Ping, Wei Chu, and the snake demon Wan Qi looked down into the well, they were bewitched by the enormous eye. Their gazes were completely drawn in. Their minds fell into a dazed state, and they became completely unable to control themselves. This eye carried an extremely strange and sinister power, causing them to be controlled without even realizing that they had already lost control over their own bodies. It was only when the deafening sound of the bell rang out that they suddenly awakened. At that moment, they discovered that their entire bodies were covered in blood, and their hands were tightly gripping the enormous chain inside the well, using all their strength to pull it upward. Even Wan Qi was no exception. It wrapped its long tail around the chain and desperately pulled together with the others. The massive chain had already been dragged up several dozen zhang, and the section behind it was covered in foul-smelling black blood. More than a dozen human skeletons were also entangled on it, having been pulled up from the bottom of the well. The horrifying sight sent chills down everyone's spines. What was even more terrifying was that they had no idea when they had started pulling the chain, how long they had been pulling, or what exactly was being restrained by the chain at the bottom of the well. All they could feel was the terrifying weight coming from the other end, as if the chain was binding an existence of unimaginable horror, something that should never have appeared in this world. Just as everyone was still immersed in fear, the enormous eyes suddenly disappeared, and the atmosphere inside the well instantly became abnormal. Only the blood water remained below, violently boiling and churning, with countless bubbles continuously rising to the surface. The water level rapidly increased, almost overflowing from the mouth of the well. Realizing that something was wrong, everyone immediately released the chain in panic. At the same moment, the bell rang again. The enormous chain instantly fell back into the depths of the well, while the rising blood water slowly retreated, returning to its previous calm state. Afterward, a faint sigh came from deep beneath the bottom of the well. The sound was extremely gentle, like the lament of a young woman imprisoned in endless darkness. However, it was precisely this softness that made it even more terrifying, because hidden within that sigh was an indescribable feeling of sorrow, coldness, and eerie strangeness. Xu Yang cautiously looked down into the well and discovered that the blood water had receded, revealing a chain wrapped around an ancient coffin. The coffin was tightly bound by the chains and slowly slid down along the wall of the well, sinking deeper and deeper into the darkness below. When the coffin finally reached the bottom of the well, a terrifying scene appeared. Beneath the darkness emerged a gigantic triangular mouth filled with countless sharp teeth. The horrifying mouth opened directly, grabbed the coffin, and swallowed it whole. The chains wrapped around the coffin looked like strange whiskers growing from the corners of the monster's mouth, making the scene even more horrifying. After swallowing the coffin, the gigantic creature beneath the well began to move. It slowly crawled through the darkness before opening its enormous mouth, causing Xu Yang to sense an immense danger. He immediately panicked and, without hesitation, dragged Wan Qi away from the area. Right after they escaped, an earth-shattering roar erupted from within the well. The terrifying sound was like the howl of an ancient creature that had awakened after countless years of slumber, shaking both heaven and earth. Under the power of this roar, Huang Sei Ping and Wei Chu were instantly gravely injured. Blood continuously flowed from their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Even the mountain where the well was located, along with the massive bronze bell guarding above it, trembled violently as if they were about to collapse. Although Xu Yang had quickly avoided the center of the attack, the shockwaves from the roar were still overwhelmingly powerful, directly sending him and Wan Qi flying into the distance. Outside, the previously calm Nihi River suddenly became violent. The river water surged wildly, with enormous waves rising into the sky, as if a gigantic monster hidden beneath the river was continuously attacking the barrier of light formed by the power of the bronze bell. Under the simultaneous attacks from inside the well and outside the Nihi River, the protective barrier of the bronze bell gradually weakened, showing signs that it could no longer hold. Xu Yang gritted his teeth and endured the impact, using all his strength to drag the unconscious Wan Qi back toward the Great Hero Hall. His body had already suffered severe injuries. Blood constantly seeped out from his pores, while his eyes, nose, and ears all leaked blood. His internal organs felt as if they had been overturned, and his heart pounded violently as if it were about to explode. At that moment, enormous figures suddenly appeared in the sky. They had shapes resembling humans, yet they were clearly not human. Holding strange weapons, they continuously attacked the protective light screen of the bronze bell, creating openings that allowed the water of the Nihi River to flood inside. A gigantic white hand reached down from the sky, attempting to seize the bronze bell directly. But the moment it touched the bell, it was shattered by the bell's power. Not only that, even more terrifying weapons appeared. Some resembled whips formed from countless screaming human faces, while others looked like strange white silk ribbons. These bizarre weapons simultaneously attacked the bronze bell and pulled upward on the chain inside the well. From these scenes, Xu Ying quickly realized that everything happening was not an accident or coincidence. A terrifying force was secretly manipulating the flow of the Nihi River, deliberately breaking the seal and attempting to release the thing imprisoned inside the coffin, even if the price was countless lives. Afterward, the bronze bell began its counterattack. Its terrifying power erupted, destroying the gigantic beings surrounding it and causing the entire sky to tremble. However, the situation inside the temple remained extremely dangerous. The water of the Nihi River flooded in, carrying a terrifying corrosive force that continuously invaded Huang Sei Ping and Wei Chu's bodies, causing their injuries to worsen and leaving their lives hanging by a thread. At the same time, under the relentless pulling force of the strange white silk ribbons, the coffin beneath the well slowly began to rise, inch by inch approaching the mouth of the well. The mysterious force's plan seemed to be on the verge of complete success. But at the most critical moment, the first rays of sunlight appeared in the eastern sky. As the sunlight descended upon the land, all the strange phenomena immediately vanished. The raging Nihi River quickly receded. The gigantic beings in the sky disappeared without a trace, and the bronze bell along with the earth-shattering battle from before seemed as if they had never existed. In the end, only a devastated land remained, covered with traces of the battle and the lingering aura of death. The battle between Xu Ying and the stone mountain god Huang Sei Ping was a life-and-death confrontation. At this moment, Huang Sei Ping was already heavily injured. One of his legs had lost all flesh and blood, leaving only white bones exposed. If he endured another powerful impact, his remaining leg would certainly not be able to withstand it either. Therefore, he understood that he could not prolong the battle. He had to defeat Xu Ying as quickly as possible before his injuries became a burden that would completely deprive him of his combat ability. Huang Sei Ping immediately circulated his true yang qi and blood, pouring all of his strength into the 100 refined steel executioner saber in his hand. The blade light erupted brilliantly, like a streak of dazzling silk tearing through space, directly colliding with the bronze pillar Xu Ying was using as a weapon. Xu Ying swung the bronze pillar with overwhelming momentum. Every strike caused the surrounding air to tremble, creating violent howling winds. However, Huang Sei Ping's blade aura was equally domineering, and every slash carried terrifying destructive power. When the blade aura struck the bronze pillar, it cut deeply into the metal, causing the damaged area to heat up and gradually turn dark red due to the terrifying temperature of the true yang qi and blood. Although Huang Sei Ping had the advantage in terms of qi and blood, he quickly realized that Xu Ying's physical strength far exceeded his expectations. The bronze pillar contained an enormous force comparable to the strength of a divine elephant. Xu Ying was not an immortal king, yet the pure physical strength of his body was actually stronger than Huang Sei Ping's. Every time the two sides clashed, the force of the rebound traveled back through the weapon, causing Huang Sei Ping's hands holding the saber to tremble. He had no choice but to continuously retreat to prevent his injured leg from suffering further pressure. Xu Ying continued pressing forward, carrying half of the broken bronze pillar as he charged toward him. Huang Sei Ping was forced to keep retreating while channeling his true yang qi and blood into his saber to counterattack. Under the terrifying heat of the qi and blood, the bronze pillar began to melt, with the metal transforming into blazing liquid that dripped onto the ground. One slash from Huang Sei Ping even directly cut through the middle of the bronze pillar, splitting it into two halves. However, at the very moment Huang Sei Ping thought he had destroyed Xu Ying's weapon, Xu Ying suddenly rotated the remaining half of the bronze pillar. The powerful spinning force instantly transferred through the saber, causing both the executioner saber and Huang Sei Ping's arms to be pulled sideways and twisted. This unexpected counterattack caused Huang Sei Ping to lose his advantage in an instant. Realizing that he could no longer continue fighting in human form, Huang Sei Ping immediately unleashed his demonic power and revealed his true form. His body transformed into a golden wolf with a wolf head and a humanoid body. Standing over 1 zhang tall, his entire body was covered in golden fur as sharp as needles. He possessed razor-sharp claws, terrifying fangs, and the full aura of a demon king erupted from him. After transforming into his true form, Huang Sei Ping roared like a violent storm. The entire true yang qi and blood within his body ignited fiercely. He pulled out his executioner saber once again, intending to use overwhelming power to end the battle. However, Xu Ying had already closed the distance and appeared right in front of him. Xu Ying's arm was like the trunk of a divine elephant, directly striking the blade of the saber with tremendous force. A thunderous collision rang out. Even the executioner saber forged from 100 refined steel could not withstand such enormous strength and was bent out of shape. At the same time, Huang Sei Ping's true yang qi and blood traveled along the blade into Xu Ying's hand, then moved along his arm and penetrated deep into his body. Huang Sei Ping was the demon king of Stone Mountain, possessing extremely powerful qi and blood. Furthermore, his true yang qi and blood were so scorching hot that they could melt bronze. Therefore, he believed that once his qi and blood entered Xu Ying's body, his opponent would definitely be burned from within. But the result shocked Huang Sei Ping. The moment his qi and blood entered Xu Ying's body, it was immediately blocked by another stream of qi and blood. Although Xu Ying's qi and blood were not as vast as Huang Sei Ping's in terms of quantity, they were incomparably pure. In a short period of time, Xu Ying blocked Huang Sei Ping's true yang qi and blood at his elbow and then forced it back out, preventing it from causing any hidden damage inside his body. Only then did Huang Sei Ping truly realize how terrifying Xu Ying was. A young man who already possessed such cultivation and was capable of killing grass gods was clearly not an ordinary human. He discovered that the cultivation technique Xu Ying practiced was clearly an immortal guidance technique of the demon race. And even his martial arts carried characteristics of demons. In Huang Sei Ping's eyes, although Xu Ying looked human, his true nature seemed closer to that of a unique demon race existence. Huang Sei Ping had never encountered anyone with such a wild and powerful fighting style as Xu Ying. He no longer held back his strength and directly attacked with his claws, infusing true yang qi and blood into them, making their power no weaker than when he used his executioner saber. At the same time, Xu Ying also launched a counterattack with his fist. The divine elephant-headed human figure behind him merged into his body, enhancing the power of his fist technique. A single punch created a raging storm. The two opponents were struck by each other's attacks at the same time. Xu Ying was blasted backward and slammed heavily into the Great Buddha Hall. His body was engulfed in fierce flames caused by Huang Sei Ping's true yang qi and blood, causing the entire hall to catch fire. Meanwhile, Huang Sei Ping also suffered Xu Ying's terrifying punch. The violent force pierced through his body, causing the clothes on his back to explode. When he fell to the ground, his already injured left leg finally reached its limit and broke with a cracking sound. Realizing that he had lost the ability to continue fighting, Huang Sei Ping retreated several steps before transforming into a three-legged golden wolf and immediately fleeing into the forest. Before leaving, he still warned Xu Ying that because Xu Ying's demonic nature had not yet been completely erased, he would spare his life. In reality, Huang Sei Ping understood that if he still had both legs, he could continue fighting Xu Ying. But now that he had lost one leg, his strength had fallen to less than 30%. Continuing the battle would only lead to death. Inside the Great Buddha Hall, Xu Ying immediately extinguished the flames burning on his body by circulating his power. But right afterward, he felt heat rise in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood that fell to the ground instantly turned into flames, proving that Huang Sei Ping's true yang qi and blood still remained inside his body. Burning his internal organs, Xu Ying had to circulate all his qi and blood with full force to suppress that true yang qi and blood. The wound on his chest had been torn open, revealing his ribs underneath. If he had not cultivated the divine elephant-killing body phenomenon, which reduced the destructive power of Huang Sei Ping's attacks, his ribs might have already been shattered by the opponent's claws. After barely stabilizing his injuries, Xu Ying continued circulating the Supreme Unity Dao guidance technique to recover. But at this moment, Wei Chu, who had been pretending to be dead in the courtyard, suddenly moved. Xu Ying immediately noticed and threw the bent executioner saber toward him. Wei Chu dodged and stood up, laughing loudly as he said that Xu Ying truly possessed the strength to kill gods. But after the battle with Huang Sei Ping, both sides had suffered heavy injuries. Xu Ying no longer had the ability to resist him. However, Xu Ying quickly saw through the truth. He discovered that Wei Chu was a Na master who had opened the Niwan secret treasury and possessed powerful recovery abilities. However, the fact that he deliberately pretended to be dead proved that his injuries were so severe that even the Niwan secret treasury could not completely heal him. He had simply been waiting for Xu Ying and Huang Sei Ping to fight until both were exhausted before appearing to reap the benefits. Xu Ying threatened Wei Chu by mentioning that snake demon Wan Qi was hiding on the roof of the Great Buddha Hall. Wei Chu immediately remembered the snake poison that had nearly killed Vice Judicial Officer Ding Quan. But at that moment, Ding Quan suddenly appeared, proving that he was still alive despite not having completely neutralized the snake poison. Wei Chu had saved Ding Quan from the snake poison, causing Ding Quan to owe him a great debt of gratitude. However, when Xu Ying recited the incantation of the Niwan Hidden Realm Qi refining technique, both Wei Chu and Ding Quan changed expressions. Wei Chu recognized it as the secret inheritance of the Zhou family, while Ding Quan feared that the fact he had copied the technique would be exposed. Immediately afterward, Ding Quan secretly launched an attack. Countless roots emerged from the ground, entering Wei Chu's recovering leg, invading his blood vessels, and moving directly toward his heart. Wei Chu was shocked and could not believe that the person he had just saved would betray him. Ding Quan cried and said that he had no choice. If the Zhou family discovered that he had copied their cultivation technique, his entire family would be destroyed. Therefore, he had to kill Wei Chu to keep the secret. Wei Chu's body was quickly consumed by countless roots. Even his mind was wrapped by them. Using Na arts, Ding Quan transformed his corpse into a gigantic willow tree. The willow tree carried a face resembling Wei Chu's, covering the entire temple and becoming Ding Quan's weapon in battle. Ding Quan blamed Xu Ying, saying that Xu Ying was the reason he had been forced to kill his savior. He then decided to eliminate Xu Ying and Wan Qi as revenge. Hearing this, Wan Qi mocked him, saying that someone who betrayed his benefactor was the true monster without humanity. Furious, Ding Quan controlled countless willow branches to attack Wan Qi, although Wan Qi used the Elephant Force Bull Demon Fist technique to resist. He was quickly injured and placed in danger under the power of advanced Na arts. Xu Ying stepped forward and said that he had thoroughly studied the Niwan Hidden Realm Qi refining technique, and discovered the weakness in Ding Quan's Na arts. He believed that although this technique was powerful, it still had flaws because he had studied more than 50 demon cultivation techniques and could identify problems in a short time. Ding Quan did not believe him and thought Xu Ying was only bluffing. He immediately used the willow sword technique, transforming thousands of willow branches into swords that attacked from every direction. However, Xu Ying relied on his observation ability and combined it with the divine elephant killing body to continuously dodge the attacks and approach Ding Quan. When Ding Quan strengthened his defense by transforming willow roots into muscles and bones, Xu Ying suddenly changed his technique. Instead of launching direct punches, he used his 5 fingers to repeatedly strike key points on Ding Quan's body. Every time he was struck, Ding Quan felt the connection between the roots and his body being severed, causing him to lose control over them. Finally, all the willow roots covering Ding Quan's body lost their power and fell down like dead snakes. The willow branches attacking Wan Qi also lost control. Ding Quan completely lost sensation in his limbs and experienced the true fear of death for the first time. Xu Ying proved his words by placing a finger behind Ding Quan's head. Although no external wound appeared, the Niwan secret treasury inside his head was destroyed, causing Ding Quan's forehead to explode and his body to collapse. Xu Ying explained that because he understood the circulation path of Na arts within the Niwan Hidden Realm Qi refining technique, he knew the exact weak point and could kill Ding Quan effortlessly. After the battle, Wan Qi urged Xu Ying to leave quickly because dawn had arrived. Otherwise, they might be surrounded by the gods of Stone Mountain. The two left the abandoned temple but discovered that Huang Sei Ping was still standing nearby. Xu Ying and Wan Qi became nervous because both of them were injured. If Huang Sei Ping attacked again, they would have little chance of resisting. However, Huang Sei Ping did not attack. He only warned Xu Ying not to travel northwest because many mountain gods and grass gods were waiting to ambush him. He advised them to head southwest, pass through Mount Anzi and Jian Mountain, and avoid pursuit. Before leaving, he also reminded Xu Ying to wash himself because his body was still covered in blood, and the smell could allow demon gods to track him. When Xu Ying asked why he had spared his life, Huang Sei Ping answered that perhaps it was because Xu Ying still retained some demonic nature. But at the same time his humanity had not disappeared. Huang Sei Ping once possessed those qualities as well. But after becoming the Stone Mountain God under the command of the Yin court, he had lost them. Huang Sei Ping believed that if Xu Ying was human, he would become an extraordinary existence among humans. If he was a demon, he would also become a unique existence among demons. He wanted to see what kind of existence Xu Ying would eventually become in the future. Xu Ying firmly stated that he was definitely human. But Huang Sei Ping left behind a warning that one day Xu Ying might discover the truth about himself. And even he himself would be shocked by it.